There's so much relationship advice out there, like what to do to have a better relationship, but not so much about the relationship mistakes that we're all vulnerable to making that can and will actually mess up even the best relationship if you do them. So you know what these are. Today I'm going to be talking about 12 highly effective ways to destroy a relationship so that you cannot do them. My hope is that over the course of today's episode, you can learn what the biggest relationship mistakes are, think about whether or not you may be vulnerable to doing some of these, and then walk away with some actionable strategies that will help you not do the things that will mess your relationship up. The reason I have so much insight into what these relationship mistakes are is because I am a professional marriage counselor. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, a licensed psychologist, a board-certified coach. I'm founder of Growing Self-Counseling and Coaching, and I'm also a clinical supervisor of other therapists. And because I specialize in relationships, I have had a front row seat and many years of experience in working with couples and certainly supporting them in developing healthy relationship skills. But also a lot of what I have to do as a marriage counselor, couples therapist, and relationship coach is help my clients identify the things that they are doing most of the time without even realizing it that are actually quite destructive. And so it's enhancing positive skills, but it's also helping people stop the things that will mess a relationship up. And so that's why I wanted to share these things with you so that you can have the healthiest, happiest relationship possible. We're going to do this old school David Letterman style. We're doing a countdown of the top 12 things you can do to destroy a relationship, starting with number 12 and going all the way down to the number one most toxic and destructive thing you can possibly do in a relationship. So let's jump right in, starting with number 12. And that is making the relationship all about you. This is a big one. And hey, it's easy to slip into this mindset, especially if you've been together for a while, right? You start thinking, and by you, I mean me, we all do this, but we start thinking about our own needs. What do we want? What do we desire? And subconsciously making our needs, rights, and feelings just a little bit more important than the other person's. Before you know it, the relationship is out of balance. One of the secrets of having a genuinely positive, happy, thriving relationship is to never forget. This is about both of you. There are two people here, and both of you are important. And so the solution is, instead of getting real self-focused and making you just a little bit more important than your partner, practice empathy. What do I mean by empathy? Empathy is the ability to slow down and put yourself in the other person's shoes and truly try to understand their perspective. So asking yourself, how would I feel if I were in their position? What is it like to live with me? And then be responsive to that. Show your partner that you care about them, that their feelings are important to you through your words, your actions, and also your way of being. Remember that a relationship is a partnership, and this requires give and take from both sides. You can't expect to just be the recipient of all the love and care and goodwill and have a positive relationship with anybody else. Number 11 of the top 12 ways to destroy a relationship is this: blaming everything on your issues. Hey, we all have issues. I have issues. Everybody does. Everybody's a weirdo in their own special way. So whether you have ADHD, depression, PTSD, anxiety, attachment issues, like whatever it is, like these are real challenges, no doubt. But they should never become an excuse for you to just be how you are without working on yourself for your own benefit, but also for the benefit of your relationship. It is our responsibility to manage our stuff in a way that it doesn't impact our partner negatively. And so pay attention to whether or not you are doing your own work. This actually ties into a really important psychological principle that can be quite destructive to all relationships unless you're aware of it. And this is the fundamental attribution error. Right? Sounds fancy, but what this concept is meaning is that we all have a tendency to attribute our own actions and behaviors to external circumstances or situational factors, make excuses for yourself, myself, ourselves. It's my issues, or I was stressed, or I was just feeling really angry, whatever it is. We have reasons for the way that we feel and the things that we do because of how we feel, right? But the fundamental attribution error is that we attribute the actions of others to internal factors like their character, their personality, right? For example, if you are running late to something, as I often am, being somebody who lives with ADHD. I have reasons. Oh, I had so much to do. I got overwhelmed. I lost track of time. I blah, blah, blah. There was traffic, meaning that I really didn't plan for as much time as it took to get there. But hey, whatever. But, we all have our reasons for being. And it would be easy for me to blow that off and being like, well, ADHD, blah, right? But if I want to have good relationships with people, I really need to manage myself in a better way, because the person on the other side isn't thinking, oh, right, other people attribute our stuff to our character. Irresponsibility, they don't care about being on time, they're disorganized, they're not trying hard enough. And so, we have to be aware of how that works in our relationships. Are we making excuses for our own bad behavior while we are attributing really negative things to other people when they show up in ways that are, maybe non-ideal? So think about this. Don't blow things off on your issues, make excuses for yourself, and also be aware of judging other people, aka your partner, overly harshly when they may be fighting their own internal battles. And just remember that everybody has reasons for feeling how they feel and doing what they do, but it's always our responsibility to be observing ourselves and actively trying to show up as best as we possibly can in service of ourselves, but also our relationships and our partners. We all have to do this in order to have good relationships. And if you're not doing this, your relationship is going to suffer. Number 10 on my top 10 list of most destructive things you can do in a relationship is that of neglecting your partner. And this is a big one. It's also really common. Again, we're all vulnerable to it, particularly in long-term relationships where you have a lot going on. But one of the sneakiest and kind of stealth ways to effectively destroy a relationship is through simple neglect. This happens slowly, almost imperceptibly. I mean, life gets busy. If you're a parent, kids demand attention. You have a job. There's house stuff that you have to deal with. But before you know it, you have stopped prioritizing time with your partner, like having one-on-one time for a good conversation or even intimacy. Like other things can feel more important than those basic rituals of connection. And while all relationships have a certain ebb and flow, and life is real, we're all vulnerable to this, it's also really important to just pay attention to whether it's happening and don't let it go on forever. You have to be intentional about putting more energy back into your relationship, particularly if you've stopped really paying attention to your partner. Even the best relationships can tolerate this neglect for certain periods of time as adults, but not forever. Over time, it will begin to erode the fabric of your relationship. It will create distance and resentment in a relationship. It will damage the friendship that you have with your partner. It makes both people start to feel really lonely and disengaged. And after a certain point, it can be difficult to put that back together again. So you have to catch it before it goes on too long. One of the things you can do to prevent this from happening is to make alone time a non-negotiable. And this does not have to be extravagant. You can sit on the couch and talk to each other in the evenings, like go for a walk after dinner, have the proverbial date night, but also do you have time in your life for intimacy, like making that more of a priority. And again, it doesn't have to be constant. It doesn't have to be multiple days a week, but at least once in a while and on a regular basis. The key here is to consistently nourish your relationship, even in small ways, but especially when life gets hectic and you feel like you really don't have time. What is more important here, right? Like getting the car washed or having a good marriage? Choose the marriage. Now, number 9 on this list might surprise you because it's one of these things that's kind of paradoxical when we think about high quality partnerships and couples that are close and connected and happy. We can be vulnerable to imagining that this is a lot of togetherness and high degrees of compatibility and doing things together and liking the same things and shared experiences. And you know what? All of those things are great. But if you have this mindset where you're kind of seeking to become one and share every aspect of life together and do everything together and have this connection kind of all the time, it will actually destroy a relationship, believe it or not. It suffocates it. So instead of seeking to merge your entire life and your emotions and have the same everything and see things the same way and do things the same way and spend all your time together, back right off of that. Because again, it will just take all the oxygen out of your relationship. It creates emotional enmeshment. It creates resentment. It creates conflict. And these expectations that can lead to a lot of hurt feelings and pain, quite frankly, in a relationship unnecessarily. Instead, make sure that you both have space, like a lot of space, to grow and develop as individuals. It is healthy and necessary to have your own hobbies, your own friends, your own interests. This independence actually strengthens your relationship. And also, as you each develop yourselves independently, it allows you to come back together again to the relationship with new experiences to share, different perspectives to appreciate, and also highlighting your complementary compatibility that may be very different from each other. You will have different strengths, different interests, different perspectives, and it is from those differences that a relationship becomes truly vibrant. So by intentionally giving each other more space and celebrating your differences, not only are you actively not engaging in a really common relationship mistake, you are participating in a practice that will support the health of your relationship and strengthen it. And if your goal is to have a healthy, happy, vibrant, long-term relationship, this is something that we all need to learn how to do. Rolling right into number 8 on this list, blaming your partner for all the problems. And hey, it is easy to fall into the trap of pointing the finger, blaming our partners for everything that's going wrong in the relationship. Because from our perspective, if they would only do things differently, typically, like being more like us, none of this would be a problem at all. I have been married a long time. I get it. I do this too. And even as a professional marriage counselor, I have to remind myself that relationships are systems and that both partners are contributing to the relational dynamic. And that when we are blaming the other person, the other thing we're doing at the same time is also probably not really looking closely at how we may have contributed to the dynamic that we're now not enjoying. So certainly, if there are issues that need to be addressed in the relationship, do that in constructive ways, but don't do it without taking a step back and looking at your own actions and your own way of being and just thinking with healthy humility how you may be showing up and how that might be contributing to the issues at hand. I mean, simple example, maybe you are getting activated about something that your partner isn't doing. They're not unloading the dishwasher, like whatever it is, right? And you're making all kinds of meaning out of that and feeling badly about it. But then when you really think about it, you're like, did I actually say that out loud? That I was hoping we could have a more equitable distribution of household responsibilities? Or was I engaging in some magical thinking right there that like they should know? I mean, that's just one tiny example, but you would be amazed at how many times as a marriage counselor, people really have very little visibility into what they are doing or oftentimes not doing. Maybe they're not talking about how they feel, but then being unhappy that they're feeling disconnected emotionally from their partner, that their partner doesn't really understand them, but that they were co-creating that experience. This can be hard to crack into, right? I mean, I think it's easier for us to look at what other people are doing rather than looking at ourselves and being like, ooh, yeah, I guess I am doing that. And so, this is just part of the human experience. We can sometimes crack into this through journaling, self-reflection. We can also, this is hard, but it works, ask your partner for constructive feedback. Like, I notice that this keeps happening. I'd love for it to be different. What can I do differently that can help us, make some improvements at this area? And ideally, this isn't happening during a fight. This is a constructive, productive conversation where you're sincerely asking for feedback so that you can show up in your best self kind of way. Ideally, they are also committed to having a better relationship with you and would be lovingly honest with you in a way that you are able to receive. If it's really hard for you two to have genuinely constructive, productive conversations along these lines, that's a great signal that it's time to get connected to a good marriage counselor, or even better sometimes, a good relationship coach who can help you both in an unbiased way take a look at what you are each doing that is maybe creating problems in the relational dynamic, and also facilitate constructive conversations about how you would both like your relationship to be. What are your couple's goals and how are we going to create that? And a great relationship coach can also give you helpful feedback about the things that you can change or do differently that will get you better results. Just remember that you have more power to create positive change in your relationship than you might think, because relationships are systems. When we change what we are doing in a relationship, it changes the relationship automatically because our partners respond to us differently. It can feel good sometimes to be righteously angry or how dare you or just placing blame onto other people. And you know what? There is a time and place for that. I mean, maybe your partner really does need to make some changes, and that's okay. But when we fall into this habit of always blaming other people and not taking responsibility for ourselves, not only do we get stuck in negative relationship dynamics, it also creates a disempowering, disenfranchised mindset where you don't feel like you have the agency to create change in your relationship. And that's just not true. Number 7 on my top 12 list of most effective ways to destroy a relationship is this: judging your partner by your own values and preferences. We all have our own way of doing things, our own values, our own perspective, our own standards, which makes a lot of sense. We grew up in our families of origin, in our culture, whether or not you are aware of the fact that you are raised in a culture, you were. And I am here to tell you that there is no one way that people should be. And when you are getting very supremacist, meaning that you are engaging in this mindset about my way of being is better than yours, when you are judging your partner solely by your own standards and not creating the fact that they grew up in a different family, a different culture of origin, they have a different set of values than you do, and that their way of looking at things is actually also legitimate and valid and deserves to get airspace in this relationship, you will create division and problems in your relationship. So in order to avoid this really common relationship pitfall, just start by acknowledging the fact that you are an individual person with an individual perspective, individual preferences, and that your partner is a separate person with their own life experience, their own values, their own preferences, and their own perspective. And commit to trying to understand and appreciate where your partner is coming from. And this can extend to so many parts of life. Parenting, the way you manage money, the way you operate your home, the way you prioritize work-life balance. I mean, so much can be attached to this. So the goal here is that you're working together to find a middle ground where both of your needs, rights, feelings, perspectives are not just respected, but also ideally appreciated. This is how you build a partnership that honors both of you as individuals. So just do a little self-check, check in with yourself, and whether or not you might have a tendency to operate from the supremacist fashion that says, I am right, you are wrong, you need to be more like me. And if you notice that happening inside of yourself, this is a great moment to say, you know what, we come from different places, let's find a way to make space for both of our preferences here, because this relationship is not just about me. We both need to feel honored and respected. And if you don't do that, it will create a lot of problems in your relationship. So I just wanted to be very honest with you, to be a good friend to you, so that I can help you have the kind of relationship that you want and deserve. Number 6 on this list is very common. It is reflexive. We all do this, but it creates problems in relationships. And that is when we instantly defend ourselves when your partner brings up an issue. That's not what happened. No, no. Let me explain myself. You're wrong. I'm right. That is so unhelpful. And I totally get it. When, especially if somebody is being a little critical with me in a way that I feel is unfair or is not fully understanding of the real story, of course, like we feel like we need to defend ourselves. I might minimize the feelings of the other person. It wasn't that big of a deal. Or even get mad at them for bringing it up. But what does this do? It shuts down communication, and this erodes trust over time, and it limits your ability to solve problems. Even worse, this leads to a situation where your partner feels like they can't talk to you, and that's really bad, and it is destructive to relationships. So instead, when your partner is bringing things up that, they might be unhappy about, resist that impulse to be like, nope, that's not what happened. Instead, just like, thank you. Thank you for telling me. Be receptive. I want to hear your perspective, and go first. Thank your partner for sharing their feelings, even if it's uncomfortable. Make sure that you are also approaching this conversation with curiosity rather than defensiveness. Oh, that's interesting. It sort of surprises me that you would have experienced it that way, but I would really like to understand because I'm hearing that this was upsetting to you. And I love you and I care about you and I do not want to upset you. Tell me more about your perspective so that we can work together to find a solution here. And then let them talk. Ask open-ended questions, ask for more information, and truly seek to understand this from their point of view. You will also find that once your partner really feels genuinely heard and understood, which you will communicate by summarizing what they said. I heard you say that when I didn't unload the dishwasher, you had expected me to do that, and then it made you feel disrespected or like everything was on you and that you're feeling really overwhelmed lately, and I was being insensitive to that and like I'm not pulling my weight, and that makes you feel really bad. And then they'll say yes, and they'll probably go on a little bit more to tell you, but like by the end of that, they'll be like, I feel a lot better. Thank you. And you might even notice that at that point, they start naturally saying, I know that you have a lot going on too. Like immediately it starts shifting into more compassion and this tolerance and willingness to see the situation from your perspective as well. Assuming that you're not actually married to a sociopathic monster, right? Like when we help people talk about their feelings, compassionate people will also typically come back to like, oh yeah, like you're a human too and I care about you. And I just wanted to mention that because I think sometimes when I broach the importance of being kind and generous and receptive to what partners are saying, that can make people feel insecure, I think, or apprehensive. Like, well, I don't want to be a doormat. What about my feelings? Don't I have a right here? And yes, of course you do. Your perspective is just as important as your partner's. And it is also their responsibility to understand where you're coming from. But when it comes to healthy communication, when they start telling you how they feel and you immediately respond with defensiveness, you are slamming that door shut in their face. Instead, open the door. Let them come through it. Be receptive. Be responsive. Go first. And then you are creating this emotional experience that is characterized by love and respect and responsiveness. And you will then have the opportunity to say, thank you so much for helping me understand how you are feeling. Would you be willing to hear my perspective of the situation? Because I want us to both understand each other. And I hope you feel understood by me right now, but would you be willing to grant me the same gift? Right? Again, if it's hard to do this and have these kinds of conversations, that could be a sign that it could be helpful to connect with a marriage and family therapist or a good relationship coach, or take advantage of this new free 2-part training that I've put together for you. It's called Communication That Connects. It's completely free. It's 2 video-based online sessions with me teaching you some of these fundamental relationship skills. I included a big work with lots of activities that you can do together or even separately to gain insight into how you are communicating with each other and find some ways of operating a little bit differently with regards to communication that will help both of you get better results and have interactions with each other that feel better. Again, this is 1,000% free. I made it for you. Come to growingself.com/communication and you can start it immediately and it's all for you. So do take advantage of that free resource. But now let's turn our attention to number 5 on that list of things that will ruin a relationship, which is actually related to communication, but something that people will commonly do without realizing it is that they are attempting to create change in their relationship through nagging or criticizing or freaking out. That can happen too. But nagging, criticizing, getting angry are all very ineffective ways to create change in a relationship, and they are destructive. They create resentment. And so if you are habitually engaging in this communication style, perhaps well-intentioned as a way of criticizing with the hope of leading to performance improvements or whatever, it's important to consider, is that how people tried to address things in your family of origin, perhaps? Like, valid. Okay, that's what you learned how to do. But as adults, we need to be reflecting again on, is this working? How am I showing up? What is it like to be with me? And to consider learning and then practicing more effective approaches to creating positive changes in relationships. And there are a lot of ways to do this. Things like positive reinforcement, authentic, vulnerable conversations, focusing on what your partner is doing right and praising them for it. Simple strategies like this not only encourage more of the behavior that you want to see, but it creates a really positive atmosphere in your relationship. And so again, just like take stock of your own patterns and ways of showing up in this relationship, and just consider whether this is toxic, damaging, unproductive, as evidenced by the way your relationship is going, versus is this an opportunity to experiment with some new strategies. And if you are one of basically everybody who did not learn how to resolve relationship issues in a constructive, positive way in your family of origin, because nobody teaches you how to do this, right? That's a signal that it is time as an adult to invest in this area of your personal and relational development. Read a book on healthy relationships, work with a relationship coach, take that Communication That Connects free online training, but do something different. Do something better. No list of biggest relationship mistakes would be complete without addressing number 4 on my list, which is talking badly about your partner to other people, either behind their back or in front of them. When you talk badly about your partner to your friends, your family, your coworkers, you are damaging trust in your relationship, and you are creating a negative image of your partner in the eyes of other people. Additionally, if you have a tendency to make fun of your partner when you are together, like out socially with people, and or like make them the butt of jokes or criticize them in public, or you won't believe what he did this time, or like rolling your eyes when they talk, like really behaving in disrespectful ways, that is sending strong signals to your social circle, but also to your partner, that you do not value them, you do not respect them. If you are making them like the punchline of your jokes, or speaking about them disrespectfully, like that leaves wounds. Whether or not you are aware of it in the moment, you think that you're just being funny or making a joke. You need to take responsibility for your words and your actions and what it is feeling like for your partner in those moments. And if you are having problems in your relationship and either need to vent or truly get guidance in this does not feel good to me, I'm not sure about how to handle the situation with my husband or my wife, that is valid, but only do this in a safe and confidential space, like with a therapist, with a coach, with someone where you're not going to poison the well, right? Because even think about friends and family. You and your partner are going through a rough patch, and you start complaining about your partner and telling the world all about the terrible things that your partner is doing. And they're like, oh, wow, man. And then you guys work it out. You get back together again, or, it's a new chapter in your relationship, but your mother still hates your husband because of all the stories that you told her about your husband while you were having a hard time. And now when you get together on Christmas, it's a very unpleasant, uncomfortable experience for your husband. He doesn't want to go on vacations with your family anymore. And you know what? They're not wrong. And to think about about, long term, what is the relational space that you are creating for your partner when you are talking to other people that you both know about your perspective in a relationship. So if you must vent or get guidance, do this with a trained professional, or even better, if you're experiencing problems in your relationship, talk to your partner about it. Always try to approach your partner directly with your concerns rather than just venting or airing grievances to others. There's something in relationships called triangling, which is really toxic, but we're all vulnerable to it. Person A has a problem with person B, but instead of courageously talking to person B about it and trying to work through issues constructively, they talk to person C about it instead. So maybe they feel a little bit better in the moment because they've been able to verbally process things, but the problem between person A and person B is still there, and it's also damaged the whole system in terms of how person C views person B now. It creates a mess. So instead, do something productive with it. Talk to your partner, talk to a therapist, journal about it, but don't poison the well. All right, we're getting to the bottom of the list here. We have 3 more to go. Number 3 on my top 12 things that will destroy your relationship is avoiding talking about your feelings. Yeah. Bottling up your feelings or expecting your partner to read your mind is a surefire way to create resentment, problems, and emotional disconnection over time. When you are not talking about important things, it is, in subtle ways, eroding your authentic connection. Instead, open, honest, healthy communication is the foundation of a healthy relationship. So make it a habit to talk about your feelings regularly and respectfully. Talk about what's on your mind, what you need, what's bothering you, especially if you can do this before it becomes a big problem. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, a lot of people wait to articulate our thoughts and feelings until it feels like a 9 or a 10, right? And we come at our partner in angry ways, and they, of course, get defensive, right? But instead, if you're able to notice your feelings and at the level of like a 2 or a 3, be able to say, you know what, I notice that this is happening between us. Curious to know what's going on for your perspective. This kind of transparency, especially when you can do it if you're not super activated, it builds trust that keeps your connection strong, and it also gives you an opportunity to solve necessary problems. All relationships have issues, have problems that need to be solved. How good your relationship is has nothing to do with how many problems you have. Healthy relationships are built when 2 people acknowledge the issues and work together to resolve them constructively. And if you're not talking about those important things, you will grow apart. Number 2 on this list is a big one. And I'm going to say this, you might be like, ooh, woo, you said that out loud, but here it is. One of the most destructive things that you can do in a relationship is fantasize about being with somebody else. Also, comparing your partner to other people, or imagining that if you were with someone else, you wouldn't be having the problems that you're having in your relationship right now. And I wanted to address this because our tendency to, especially when we're going through relationship rough patches, compare our partner to how we imagine other people's partners to be, or if you have perhaps connected with somebody else, like an emotional affair kind of situation, that can be very destructive to a relationship. But even on a more subtle level, if you are attributing the problems that you're having in your relationship to your partner's, character, compatibility, like, did I marry the wrong person? Like, this is who they are, right? And if I were married to somebody else, I would be having a very different experience. I would invite you to check that out, because there are some times when relationships really do run their course, and it's in the best interests of everybody to hang it up and part peacefully. But most of the time, people feel that way about their relationships when they are having problems that they don't know how to solve. And when that happens, a relationship starts to feel hopeless, and people start to attribute a lot of negative things to the other person's character because they don't know how to move forward in a way that heals the relationships. Maybe your emotional needs aren't getting met, your sexual needs aren't getting met, you're feeling really emotionally disconnected for long periods of time because there's been a lot of neglect happening in your relationship, or you feel very emotionally unsafe with each other. I mean, all of those things, it can lead you to think about, how can I get those needs met? Or imagine that there could be a very different person and that you would have an entirely different relational experience with someone else. But if you are going there instead of trying to see if you can solve solvable relationship problems and working with your partner to make your relationship better, you are setting your relationship up for failure. So things that you can do to shift back into a more productive space. If you are truly ambivalent about a relationship, don't try marriage counseling or couples therapy with me or anybody else because it won't work. Instead, seek out something called discernment counseling. This can help you get clear about what it is that you want. Are you still committed to this relationship? And if so, what is it going to take to create real and lasting change that will strengthen and repair your relationship? Then with that information in hand, you can decide if this is something that you want to do. And if the answer is yes, then you can move forward into constructive marriage counseling. But if you have a strong attachment to another person or an idea about an idealized other that you're comparing your partner to, you have to release that in order to be able to move forward with them. We're finally here at number 1 on my list of top 12 most destructive things you can possibly do to ruin a relationship. And here is number 1. Ready? It is assuming that your relationship problems will magically get better on their own. Yeah. The number 1 most effective way to destroy a relationship is to assume that things will get better on their own without any effort. Relationships require work, commitment, and a commitment to continuous growth and self-development, as well as relational development. So embrace the idea that a genuinely great relationship doesn't just happen. If we were more compatible, then we wouldn't have these problems. So if I had a different partner with whom I was more fundamentally compatible, then I wouldn't be experiencing these things. Maybe you wouldn't be experiencing exactly these things, but you would have a different set of relationship issues that you would have to work on with anybody that you're with. And so just wrapping your head around this and understanding that good relationships don't just happen. They are cultivated with intention, with effort, with care. We all have to invest in our relationships and invest in ourselves, like that we are growing into the kind of people who know how to have amazing relationships with our friends, our families, and also our romantic partners. And that what that means is that we have to work on it. We have to work on our relationships. We also have to work on ourselves. And that means seeking out resources. Take that free training I put in front of you, Communication That Connects, growingself.com/communication. Consider professional support if needed, but read some books, do some journaling. Think about, okay, here's what we want our relationship to be like. What is currently getting in the way of that? What needs to change? And again, a lot of couples struggle to get clarity around that, or it can disintegrate into conflict if it has been feeling rough. Like that isn't isn't an easy conversation to have. But, to get support to have that conversation and be able to do something about it. And just remember that the happiest couples, the strongest couples, are the ones who are proactively working on their relationships. So coming in for relationship coaching while they're still cute and they still love each other and have a lot of goodwill and intention, that is so easy for marriage counselors like me to work with. Couples who have let things go on for so long and been engaging in one or more of the toxic relationship behaviors, the relationship mistakes that we've been talking about today, by the time they darken my door, there has been so much damage done that the best marriage counselor in the world cannot put it back together again. Attachment bonds erode. Oftentimes, one partner withdraws from this unbeknownst to the other until it is too late. So don't let that happen to your relationship. If you're carrying a mindset that marriage counseling, couples therapy, relationship coaching is only for people who have major problems and who are on the brink of divorce, that will actually create major problems and push you into the brink of divorce. Be proactive. Take responsibility for the quality of your relationship and maintain it like you maintain anything else in your life, regularly, intentionally, and often. Do the work. If you'd like more of my support on this, I have so many podcasts for you. You can come to my website, growingself.com, come into the blog and podcast section and start browsing. Go into the love collection. I have so much stuff. I make it all for you. Take advantage of the free 2-part training. And of course, if you would like to get involved in evidence-based, high-quality, expert relationship counseling or coaching, you're invited to do this with me or my team here at Growing Self. Just come to growingself.com and request your free consultation meeting so we can get to know each other, talk about your hopes and goals and how we can help you achieve them. If you have questions after hearing all this or want to talk about something that's going on in your relationship and get my advice, join me this week on my live stream. It's Thursday at 12 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Eastern. Hop on the socials. I'm at YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Connect with me. I would love to hear what's going on in your relationship and offer my feedback as a service to you. So hope to see you there. All right, until next time, take care.